Hello, everybody. BeMetalways here. Hope you're all doing well. Today, I'm gonna come back to the 13 albums that have shaped my musical life, and this is part 2. Part number 1 was really heavy metal driven. This one, spoiler alert, it's not. And I'll start with number 5, which is Pink Floyd, The Wall. So I want to put a little bit of context here. I got to know this album in the early 90s. At that moment, Bruce left Iron Maiden, Halloween went downhill, so did, in my view, Guns N' Roses and Metallica. So for me, metal was in a bit of a crisis, so I started to really get interested in the roots of metal, so classic rock. So I was listening to Deep Purple, Rainbow, Led Zeppelin, and so on. But it was really progressive rock, starting with Pink Floyd's The Wall, that really got me hooked. I think everything has been said about this masterpiece, even though for some it's not their preferred album. It's actually not among my top 3 Pink Floyd albums, but it is a masterpiece, especially from a concept album perspective. From The Wall, I went into their whole discography, and Pink Floyd became one of my favorite bands of all time. It also opened the doors to progressive music in general and bands like Rush and Yes later on. Going down the list, the next one is number 6, and it's A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. As I mentioned, I decided to go and explore the roots of rock, and I started browsing my parents' vinyls, and A Hard Day's Night was chosen. They did have other ones actually, but for some reason I started with this one. To this day, I still love this album, and it's not my favorite Beatles album, but it is the one that started it all. The title song, the Tell Me Why song, When I Get Home, have already a fast pace and heaviness to it for its time. The same goes for the hit Can't Buy Me Love, which I used to sing pretending to be a thrash metal song back in the day. I was a huge fan of the ballads as well, If I Fell and I Love Her. So the whole album in sum was really a sing-along 30-minute masterpiece for me, and was the springboard to the whole Beatles catalog, which is hugely influential for rock in general and for my personal life as well. Album number 7, Surfing with the Alien by Joe Satriani. Also, in the early 90s, as I started playing and studying guitar, my taste shifted a bit into not only classic rock, but also jazz and instrumental bands. Among those, guitar heroes such as Satriani, Steve Vai, Steve Morse were my favorite. And Surfing with the Alien is the one album that got me started. With a guitar book in hands, I listened to it so many times, over and over again, trying to learn the songs. It's a fantastic album. It's Satriani at his best. After that, I actually have his whole discography and I listen to it up to this day. All right, so we're down to the last album of this part. Album number 8, I'll stay with another guitar hero, Stevie Ray Vaughan. And now we go into the blues. And that's also what I was exploring as I was learning guitar, exploring jazz and blues. And Stevie Ray Vaughan was hugely influential. What an amazing guitar player. I remember the day he passed on the helicopter accident. It was really, really sad because still he had so much potential. One of the best, if not the best, blues guitar player in history. And the album that I got was In Step, just because I think was the latest one at the time. It was the one I found it. It is a fantastic album. Maybe not as good as his first one, Texas Flood, which I love it as well. This is the one that really got me into his music and actually into blues in general. So there you have it. Those are the 4 albums in part 2. None of them are metal. So we come back to metal for part 3. But for now, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Help me out here and be meta always.